question that I get asked on a fairly regular basis is about the various ways that you can connect up your keyboards and all the other bits and pieces in your organ to the MIDI encoder, to our Universal Midi Encoder. Now, a lot of people are kind of under the impression that if they buy a digital organ in whatever state of disrepair, and they decide that they're going to rework that or rewire that to work with our Universal encoder and use it for Hauptwerk, they're kind of under the impression that because it's digital, they can just unplug the keyboard from whatever electronics is already in there, which is essentially a computer, and just plug in my encoder in its place. And so the question comes about, well, do you sell an adapter? Is there a lead I can buy that will plug in between the stops on a XYZ organ from whoever and just work with your keyboard, because I don't have time to cut all the wires off and I'm no good at soldering and blah blah blah. So is there something that I can just buy that will just plug in and it'll all work? And I must say, it would be great if we could do that. It would be really nice actually if I could make something that would kind of work in that way. I think it would be really helpful to lots and lots of people, but unfortunately it's not really possible. And the reason is that just because it's a digital organ doesn't mean that it works in the same way as any other digital organ or as my encoder. All organs are different, all cars are different. You know, you can't take the back window from a Ford Focus and fix it on a Volvo. It doesn't fit. You can't take the engine out of a Volvo and fit it into a Skoda, because it doesn't fit. And well, okay, it'll probably fit in the space, but all of the connections to it, where the fuel goes in and out, where it bolts onto the gearbox, where all the wires go, it's all going to be different, and organs are the same, unfortunately. There is no standardisation at all in the organ world, other than well, obviously the keyboards and the physical specifications, they have to be the same, but other than that, the only standard is the MIDI standard, and there are 2 or 3 of those even, but generally speaking, the MIDI standard is really the only standard there is. So if you buy a digital organ and it has a MIDI out socket on the back, then if you read through all the manuals and the paperwork that goes with it, there's probably a pretty good chance that you can just plug that thing into a computer that's going to run Hauptwerk anyway. You don't need to do anything to it, assuming it works, obviously. You don't need my encoder, you don't need any of the other stuff. If it's got a MIDI out, it should be able to just plug in and work somehow. And I say somehow because although MIDI is a standard, it's been around since, well, the first I ever came across it was in about 1982, and it's evolved a hell of a lot from then, since then. The computers that were inside the instruments back in the early 80s are massively different to the computers that are inside the instruments today, and their capabilities were far more limited than the capabilities of the instruments, the computers that drive them, call it what you will, that we have in today's organs. So there's probably quite a lot of setup required to get the right MIDI signals out of your digital organ and to make it work properly with Hauptwerk. However, just to make it work in some fashion should be pretty simple, because basically you have got 3 or 4 channels. There are 16 possible channels in MIDI. Generally speaking, each manual on your organ will use a different channel. So if you've got a 3 manual organ with pedals and stops, you're probably going to have channels 1, 2, 3 on the manuals, 4 on the pedals, and 5 for the stops. Something like that. and each of those channels is just going to be carrying information which is very basic. It's going to be note on, note off information, and that's pretty much it. So when you press down on a key on one of the manuals, it will send a MIDI note on signal for that particular note, and they're numbered. So middle C is note 60, and they go obviously higher and lower than that. But each semitone is the next note. So middle C is note 60, C sharp is 61, D is 62, and so on. And working in the other direction, that's how it works. So most or all instruments that have got a MIDI out socket on them will be capable of sending that information, and you can just plug that straight into a computer running Hauptwerk and play it. It's pretty much that simple. That'll work fine. But if you've got a digital organ that doesn't have a MIDI out socket on it, or there's something wrong with it, and you decide that you want to modify it and fit one of our encoders, or anybody else's encoder for that matter, there isn't really an easy way of just plugging that in. You have to kind of start over from scratch. And that brings us on to another issue and another